Wolfpack fans, Marcy Bullock with part 2 of networking and career fitness. So we have a list of all the possible people that we are now thinking could help us in our job search. Now we need to organize the list. Think about how to reach out to that person, put that in your Excel spreadsheet, what their relationship is to you. If they give you a lead, that's going to be a tick box where you say yes or no, and that might be they suggest someone else that you contact. Whatever advice they shared, you can add. Did you share your resume? Tick yes or no. Did you send a thank you note? Yes or no. And were there any special requests? So now we have our list, and now we are going to act. We are going to get out of the starting blocks of this race and send a short email or a LinkedIn request to connect. This is important because you're not going to mention a job at this point, but you are going to mention the connection that you are trying to make with that person. And you are going to try to be as specific as possible. So here's an example of what you would say in an email introduction. When I say be specific, this is the biggest mistake students make. They send an email out to someone randomly they see on LinkedIn, one of the 200,000 Wolfpack alums, and they say, I'd like to connect with you. But that's going to get lost in the shuffle. The key is to find a commonality between you and that individual. That's going to help them to really personalize it. So you mentioned in here that you both were part of a certain athletic team. Maybe you were both part of a certain major, as I say on the second email here. Some commonality. Be specific. That is going to raise this connection request or email up to the top of the list versus just a very vague email. The other thing you will notice that we did on both of these emails is we are letting this individual know what we want. Be clear. I'd like to have a quick chat with you just to learn about careers. It's advice. It is not, I'm unemployed seeking a job, because what will happen if you say that to a connection? Now, obviously, if this is a family member, you're emailing your aunt's probably going to want to help you. But what's going to happen is your aunt is going to recommend you to their neighbor's lab partner. And that's when the person doesn't know you, but because you've been referred from someone they do know, they're going to be like, should I talk to this person or not? What do they want? Oh, they want a job. Well, they should apply online. What you're trying to do is not be a cyberspace resume. You're trying to be a real human being who can look into another person's eyes, even if it's over a screen during a quarantine, and not be out there floating around in cyberspace. So you're also mentioning when you're available. Be clear. You're going to be as flexible as you can with a person who is busy. So you're mentioning any day, Monday, Wednesday before noon, and then that makes it really easy for me, if I'm Dr. Abrams, to write back and say, hello, Christy. Yes, the last Wednesday of July is perfect. Send me a Zoom invite. I'm a busy professional. I studied biochem. I work at Grifols. And you are interested, you could be a future leader. You are seeking advice. That's the key. And now it is game day. So you've sent out all these emails. You've had people write back to say, yes, I'll Zoom with you, or maybe have a social distance coffee or walk. Whatever the answer is, you are now at that moment. What do you do when you have the conversation with this individual? Well, be professional. Go ahead and wear your business casual, maybe a collared shirt to show that you are being serious about this and that you don't look sloppy. Maybe wearing a ball cap. I know some people haven't had haircuts during the quarantine, but do the best you can and be friendly and happy and grateful that they are agreeing to help you. This person is giving one of the most valuable things they have, and that's time. So if it's a Zoom, log on early, or a Google Hangout, just get there and be ready. And then I'm going to show you the list of questions that you can use. Now, the biggest piece of advice I have for game day is ask for assignments, right? So maybe you're training. If we're using the fitness analogy, you're training for that marathon. You need to go back and train hard. It doesn't happen that you run 26 plus miles in one day. You put in a lot of work. So you need to know what work to put in to reach your goal. Ask for assignments. Who else do you recommend that I talk to in this field? What podcasts should I listen to? What articles should I read? These are your homework assignments that you can report back that you've completed. And that's part of your informational interview where you're taking these notes, you're looking interested, and like you are a very serious person who would be successful if hired one day. This bullet point list of questions, take a screenshot here, friends, because this is great. It's got all the possible directions you could go with this conversation. Because in an informational interview, and you can just think about it as an advice sharing conversation, if you like that term better, you're talking to someone in the field that you aspire to enter. Giving advice to other people makes you feel good. If someone contacted you today and said, "Oh, you're studying communications at NC State. I'm a high school student who just got accepted. Could I ask you a few questions?" I bet all of a sudden your chest would puff out and you would say, "I'd be happy to tell you about it," because you have something in common with them, and helping other people makes you feel good, especially during COVID-19, where a lot of people are not commuting to work. They are working remotely and they have time to give back. So you are the interviewer, yes, and you get to ask whatever questions on this list you are interested in. I always like the tell me about the typical day, just to give them a feel for sharing with you what it's like to be in this job in a day in the life. And always that last bullet point, who else do you recommend I talk to? Because if they say, "Well, I think you should talk to," and then they give you a name, then you mention the name of that individual, and all of a sudden you're in the small stack of resumes when jobs become available. You're not in the huge stack, and every recruiter has two stacks. You want to be in the stack where someone knows you and has endorsed you. So here you are now going, "All right, I've got my list of questions, but I still don't know what to say. This seems really uncomfortable for me." That's why we're stretching you out of your comfort zone. That's why putting in the training results in what you're trying to accomplish. It doesn't happen overnight. So I'm going to quote one of my career ambassadors, Devon Waterman, who said, "Embrace the awkward." It's very awkward. Give that cheerful greeting and then listen. Listen to what they say and learn. These are questions that are going to enrich you and make you a lot more knowledgeable about the field that you have in common with them. And look for some interesting opportunities to share facts about you. They may turn the table and say, "Well, actually, tell me about that class that you took last summer. That looks really interesting." Now, the table has turned, and it's almost like you're in an interview because they're getting a feel for what you have to offer. Always look for commonalities that you might share. Maybe you grew up in the same hometown, or you like the same hobby, or you're watching the same series on Netflix, but it's a normal conversation with another person. And in part 3, we are going to move on to showing appreciation. So this is Marcy Bullock signing off from the second part of the webinar.